very first edition of Seconds Out Reflections. Apologies for the clumsy pun on my last name, but I'm Danny Flexen. Great to see you all. And this program is going to come out every Monday, 4:30 PM from now on, and we're going to be looking back, or reflecting, in case the pun was too subtle for everyone out there. I'm sure it wasn't. We're going to be reflecting on the past weekend's action, and we're going to have a new program on Thursdays as well, which I'll tell you about later, which will look ahead to the coming action. No better place to start than Manchester. Tony Bellew, Alexander Usyk, or for the purists out there, Alexander Usyk versus Tony Bellew. Although Usyk, with an 8th round stoppage victory, scored his 5th win in a row on the in the away country of his opponent, which is incredibly impressive, as is Usyk, former Olympic gold medalist, undefeated, 16-0 now, world champion, undisputed cruiserweight world champion. You kind of have to start any conversation about Saturday night with a talk about Tony Bellew, not just because he's retired straight after the fight, having taken on his last big challenge and unfortunately fallen a little bit short, but also because how good his performance was up until kind of 5-6 rounds. For the first 4 rounds, he seemed to be well ahead of Usyk. Not only did he put in a typically lion-hearted, valiant performance, but it was a performance full of guile, cunning, strategy from Dave Coldwell in the corner. Very, very impressive stuff. Offsetting Usyk, counter-punching effectively, very accurate, mixing it up to head and body. Kept Usyk guessing. Unfortunately for Tony, as world-class fighters tend to, Usyk did work him out somewhere around the 4th, 5th round, and then he started putting the pressure on, cutting off the ring a bit better as Bellew tired, landing more telling shots, hard shots, making up the distance with his footwork incredibly well, and sorting his defence out because he'd been leaking a few shots in the early going, but tended to wipe that out towards the end as Bellew threw less also. The finish in the 8th round was a highlight reel knockout of which Bellew, or highlight reel stoppage I suppose you'd say, of which Bellew himself would have been proud. Great southpaw left hand to finish it. Bellew looked shocked by the power when he hit the deck, although thankfully recovered pretty quickly. Usyk goes on to big fights, possibly at heavyweight, possibly targeting Anthony Joshua, which is a fight I'm sure we'd love to see, although maybe be wise for Usyk to have a couple of warm-ups at heavyweight first. Bellew, he's retired. What's he going to do next? Well, could work for Matchroom perhaps. The promoters have talked about offering him a job. Could work for Sky Sports on a more regular basis. He's done some commentary and pundit work for them already. Be interesting to see what he decides, but in his post-fight press conference he said he just wants to be left alone now, and you can see that on the Seconds Out YouTube channel. But yeah, he wants to be left alone for the time being, but I'm sure he'll be lured back, not for a comeback fight, but into boxing in some other way. I think he'd make a good manager. He's been very, over the course of his career, and we'll talk a little bit in a minute about how we sum up his career and his legacy, but over the course of his career he seems to have made the right decisions at the right times more than he hasn't. So I would think he might be a good manager for young fighters out there who need a bit of guidance. Let's talk about Bellew's career, because almost immediately after the retirement, maybe before the fight had even happened, Tony's always had a lot of detractors. A lot of them came out and said, look, Tony Bellew, fair play to him, but, and there's always a but with guys that, dislike someone so vehemently, his career isn't all it's cracked up to be. And their point is, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, so Tony, please don't come looking for me. I know you've got time on your hands now. Their viewpoint was, yeah, he won a world title, WBC cruiserweight. However, it was a vacant title, albeit against Ilunga Makabu, who was thought to be a danger man at the time and went into the fight as the favourite. His 2 biggest wins in terms of profile were over a faded David Haye. Hard to argue with that one. And the best fighters he's fought, Alexander Usyk, Adonis Stevenson, both stopped him. Bare facts, bare resume. What can you say? They seem to have hit the nail on the head, and I'm sure even Tony wouldn't disagree. However, you've got to look at it, well, yeah, you don't have to do anything, but I look at it from a different standpoint. Bellew, as he's told us many times, left school with no qualifications. As an amateur, he won 3 national ABA titles, but he didn't medal much as an international performer. Not a great deal was expected of him as a pro. I think everyone thought he'd win at least a British title, maybe more, but I don't think anyone thought he was going to be this pound-for-pound great, and he hasn't, let's be honest. However, he's translated his skills, and more importantly, his personality, into several big paydays and real crossover appeal. Not just because he was in Creed, which was a big movie, but let's look at him in comparison to his co-star in Creed, Andre Ward. No doubt that Andre Ward is a much, much better fighter than Tony Bellew. Bellew wouldn't dispute that. Also, look at the resume. Ward's beaten several top fighters, retired undefeated, won world titles at 2 different weights. I mean, I could go on and on. Great amateur Olympic gold medalist, great professional. However, I would guess, you know, I don't see their financials obviously, but I would guess that Bellew's earned more money from his career than Ward. And both have now retired. And money isn't everything. You know, Ward's going to have the greater legacy. There's no doubt about that. But Bellew's translated what he has, the trash talking, the self-promotion, into making himself a big crossover star. What can you dispute about that? You know, he's made the money, as he's always said, these fists feed my kids. I'm not going to do the impression because it would be terrible, but he's done what he set out to do. He's supported his family. He's also been a key figure in this Matchroom Eddie Hearn move to bring boxing back to the casual fans. Now, I know hardcore fans, hardcore pundits, of which I count myself. We don't really love the casuals. You know, we resent them. We don't like them impinging on our sport. Totally get that. However, without them, boxing wouldn't be getting the same level of investment. It wouldn't be getting the same level of coverage from the mainstream media as it gets. So people like Bellew, Joshua, and the Matchroom machine, the Sky Sports machine, have been big factors in making that happen. So if there's nothing else that you like about Tony Bellew, you should at least give him some grudging praise for that. Bellew aside, a lot went on in Manchester on Saturday night. Chief support saw Anthony Crolla book a daunting, to say the least, shot at WBA lightweight champion and all-around superb fighter, possibly the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world currently, Vasyl Lomachenko. Crolla booked that opportunity by beating the tough Indonesian warrior, Daud Chino Jordan. Paulie Malignaggi kept referring to him as Jordan. I'm not sure why. Malignaggi had a great night aside from that, but, you know, I really wanted to see Katie Price taking Anthony Crolla's best body shots. Stuff of fantasy, to be honest, but it wasn't. It was Daud Chino Jordan. Decent fight, good performance from Crolla. He had that extra bit of variety, good movement. I would say after 4 rounds of it, though, I didn't need to see any more. It was quite repetitive. Once you'd seen the first 4, you knew how the fight was going to go. Jordan staged a mini rally, rounds 11 and 12, but he was never going to catch up, and Crolla got the victory pretty comfortably in the end. But now goes on to face Lomachenko, which I think he'll be a sizable underdog. So if you are a Crolla fan, put some money on him to do it. But, you know, I've got to be honest, I love Crolla. I think he's a great guy, but I don't favour him to win that, and I don't think many people will. But it's hard. Everything he's been through, it's hard to begrudge him the shot, very similarly to Tony Bellew. Further down the card, Ricky Burns, former 3-weight world champion, another one of boxing's nice guys, looked back to some sort of explosive form, which we haven't seen from him in a while. It's hard to say how much his opponent, Scott Cardle, has left in the tank. He's had a couple of devastating defeats recently, so he's got some decisions to make, it's fair to say. But Burns dominated the fight with good timing, straight shots, feet in and out. Very, very good stuff. Gets the basics right, Burns. Finished it with a big right hand. In the post-fight, he and Eddie Hearn were talking about finding him a big fight at world level next, so it'll be interesting to see that. I'd love to see Burns against his stablemate, Joe Cordina, but I guess, you know, with the same trainer, that's going to have to stay in the sparring ring, at least for now. Further down the card, you've got Dave Allen and Josh Kelly were kept busy. Well, that was the plan anyway, against Argentinian opposition, who don't normally come over here and, you know, upset the apple cart, a few notable names aside. Went the way Kelly, at least, adhered to the script. He got rid of his opponent in the first round. Dave Allen struggled, though, laboured to a 7-round retirement win against Ariel Bracamonte. Bit of a surprise that, seeing as Allen not only had a good win in his last fight, but also seemed to have the edge in skills, power, chin, all the major attributes except one, conditioning. To be fair, neither of their conditioning looked great, but at least Bracamonte showed real heart to stick in there. You know, first fight outside Argentina, he could have chucked the towel in, or his trainer chucked the towel in after 3 or 4 rounds, but lasted into the 7th, nose spread all over his face. It wasn't a pretty sight, but he wasn't a good looking guy before, to be fair. But he hung in there, and you've got to give him credit for that. Allen, on the other hand, he said he took the fight at short notice, which is true, fair enough. However, he's fought several times this year, 5 or 6 times. He's always getting these sort of calls from Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. So if he knows there's a likelihood that he's going to get these short notice jobs, he should be keeping in condition. Outside the gym, inside the gym, it shouldn't matter. And I think, to be fair to him, I think he realises that now. It's easy for me to say, standing here, you know, 17 stone, eating donuts later on probably to kind of sort your nutrition out. But I'm not being paid to be a professional athlete. He is, so fair play. I think he can go sort his nutrition out, maybe even take a nutritionist on board if he hasn't already, sort his strength and conditioning out, because the talent's there, and that's the most frustrating thing about Dave Allen. The head movement's there, the accuracy's there. He's a decent fighter, and as he said himself on Twitter, he's got the makings of a decent heavyweight, maybe even more than decent. He's still young in the game, especially at heavyweight. So it's not too late for him, and we can only hope that he gets the discipline to go with his ability, and then maybe he could go a bit further than he has been in the last couple of years. he doesn't want to be a trial horse anymore, so he needs to start acting like the A side outside of the ring. Let's look at the WBSS. That was the other major card to take place this weekend. That was out in Chicago in the US, in case you didn't know where Chicago is. The last two semi-final spaces were filled. These were both in the cruiserweight division. We saw Maris Bridis, who's arguably given Alexander Usyk the toughest fight of his career so far. It's either him or Bellew. Maris Bridis take a controversial decision over Noel Mikhailian. I think most people thought Mikhailian had just edged it, but Bridis got the nod, and he'll go through to a semi-final against tough Polish fighter Krzysztof Glowacki, another Usyk victim. Glowacki scored a more comfortable victory over Maxim Vlasov. So those guys will meet at some point next year. And they were the last two out of all three weight divisions that WBSS is encompassing this year. They were the last two quarterfinals to be held. So we look forward to the 6 semi-finals coming up next year, including British interest with Josh Taylor. Just before I let you go, just keep in mind, this programme will be on 4:30 PM every Monday now, looking back on the previous weekend's action. We'll also have a preview show every Thursday at 4:30 PM, looking ahead to the following weekend. So don't miss it. I hope you've really enjoyed the first one. I hope we increase the budget, so not all of them will be filmed in my front room. I hope we increase the budget so I can afford a better front room, more to the point. But I hope you've enjoyed it. Leave your comments below. What was your highlight of last weekend's action? What do you want Tony Bellew to do next? Do you want him to take a rest? Do you never want to see him on your TV again? Fully accept that if you don't. What's next for Usyk? Is he ready for Joshua now? Does he need some warm-ups? Give us your opinion below in the comments section, and we'll see you next Monday for the next episode of Seconds Out Reflections. Thank you very much.